Everybody, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. I know that Brendan had an emergency at work and he will not be with us this evening, but we have, I think, pretty much everybody else. So we'll get started. And the first order of business is Pledge of Allegiance.
I can share the flag if you give me 1 sec.
Okay. Okay, we can get started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for sharing that screen. And now we're on to public comment. If you would like to speak during public comment, we do it two ways. You can either use the reactions and raise your hand or put your name in the chat. Is there anybody who would like to speak during public comment? I'm not seeing any hands or anything in the chat. One last chance if there's anybody who wants to speak during public comment. Okay. Oh, I noticed that the principal from Wyndham Tech is here. Nice to have you here with us today.
Do you want me to introduce him now or later?
No, we'll do it later, but I just
fair
noticed
enough.
you were here.
Yes.
Yeah, you're on the agenda later. So, so then we'll move on to approval of minutes. And I would entertain a motion to approve the January 26th, 2022 minutes.
Ilda, so moved.
Ilda made them. Do I get a second?
Mark.
Second.
Mark, second. Any discussion? Yes, Paula.
I just mentioned that my name was not in those attending the meeting.
And you were there. Okay.
I was there.
So that's an oversight which we'll have to get corrected before we post them. Anything else? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote, please, Holly.
Ms. I,
Aye.
Dr. Galucci,
Aye.
Ms. Ray,
Aye.
Dr. Kaban Owen,
Aye.
Mr. Doyle,
Aye.
Ms. Haney,
Aye.
Ms. Rivera,
Aye.
and Mr. Barr.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to move on now to superintendent's reports, and looking at the number of things on this report, it's quite daunting, but we got most of it in our packets, and I'm sure it won't take as long as it looks.
I'll go
I'm just
fast.
I'm just kidding
Kidding.
you.
It's all good. Hi, everyone. Let me just open up my screen here so you can see my screen and I can see all your faces. Or most of your faces anyway. Okay, hopefully everyone can see my COVID update screen. Today we had just one positive case, which always makes us very happy when the numbers are that low. We currently have 5 staff members in isolation and 23 students in isolation and 8 students in quarantine. So those numbers have dropped significantly in the last few weeks, which makes the COVID team and I very, very happy. I know it's no surprise or everyone knows that the governor made an announcement on February 7th related to the mask mandate. What the governor didn't mention in the news conference is that the legislature still has to decide if what he recommended is actually going to be honored. So we are still waiting for some clarification on that. They actually started meeting today, I believe. As a district, we're also waiting on the State Department of Ed and Department of Public Health's guidance on, they're supposed to be putting out something that will help towns to make decisions about using masks when it might be important to do that. And I've already started a lengthy list of connecting with all sorts of leadership connected to this decision regionally, locally, and within the district. So much more to come on that. I put out a phone call yesterday to our staff and families, and today at 4 o'clock, or a few minutes after 4 o'clock, I pushed out the staff mask mandate survey. Tomorrow, we will push out the parent survey, and the 6th through 12th graders will take the survey somewhere between the 10th of February and the 14th of February. So I should have data soon, so that we at least know where people stand on the issue. Any questions?
I would just like to add that the legislature went into session officially today for the next 12 weeks, and they're scheduled to go back in tomorrow, like at 12:30 or something. They did have a public hearing on the mask mandate issue on Monday, and so Dr. Youngberg is correct. We do need to wait to see what the legislature decides to do.
Unfortunately, that's not been the way it's been reported in newspapers and on television.
Right.
That's not the message they're sending. So I'm trying to make sure people understand there's a little more to it than what was mentioned on the television. That whole idea, just because you hear it doesn't mean it's, true. So more to come on that for sure. So now we're up to celebrations in my report, and let me just click to the next slide. As the board knows, we set a goal in the summer to make sure every student in the district had an opportunity to take part in a project-based learning experience in the fall and one in the spring. Of course, teachers could do more than one project in the fall and more than one in the spring, but that was the requirement. That was sort of our goal for every single student to take part in that experience. And these are just some of our little ones who participated in the fall. We just wanted to show you their smiley little faces reporting out on project-based learning. We're in the process of planning for the spring projects and making sure our teachers have the appropriate resources to allow their students to explore. I think it definitely has helped in engaging kids back into the idea of school. We know that we had an issue with student engagement and feeling like school wasn't a whole lot of fun as a result of COVID. And although, school can't always be fun, the reality is we learn better when the climate is light and we're, having a good time with each other. So we're going to continue this initiative forward. Our literary magazine, the high school Mirrors and Windows Emerging, was recognized with an excellent rating from the National Council of Teachers of English. And you can see there on the screen in their masks, that those are the authors that are still in the high school. Many of them graduated because it's a multi-year magazine that they put out, and that's Miss Dara Bowling who runs that magazine, and kudos to them for being recognized with an excellent rating. Our board members and many of our staff members have already seen this particular slide. And this is Downs Construction, which is the construction company that's working on our high school right now. They offered a little mini workshop to 35 of our juniors and seniors at the high school who are interested in construction. And they're going to be allowing those students, the 27 that signed up after the workshop, to shadow them and potentially have an opportunity for a paid apprenticeship. So we're really excited about this, and we just want to shout out and thank Downs Construction for their willingness to work with our kiddos. It's another example of our initiative to sort of connect our students to the community and vice versa. It's a win-win for everybody. And I don't know, did I see Pam on my screen? There's Pam. I don't see her face, but I see her name. I just wanted to make sure everyone recognizes the fact that we did put through the Principal of the Year nomination for Miss Pamela Kavanaugh, and she did decide that she's going to compete with the other nominees. There she is. Now I see her face. So I just wanted to congratulate Pam and let you all know that we'll be keeping you up to date on how the competition goes, but she decided to throw her hat in the ring and compete. I don't know if you have anything you want to share, Pam. Beautiful fish tank behind you, by the way, but congratulations, Pam.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's really important to me and my role as principal to get the good word out about all the great things happening in Windham, especially at our high school, and to recognize, our great team of admin, teachers, staff, and students. So I'm really happy to, represent our school.
Excellent. Go Whippets. I totally agree. And last but not least in my celebrations is Miss Madeline Gagnon, who was one of the winners of Senator Murphy's essay contest. Pretty impressive that there are only 15 winners out of 2,200 entries. So we're going to be putting her cute little face out in a blast for the district to congratulate, but I wanted the board to see it first. Again, I think it's really impressive to be chosen out of that many entries. So congratulations, Madeline. And her mother did give me permission to use her picture when she emailed me. So I know she's going to be waiting.
Are we going to be able to read the essay?
Oh, would you like a copy of the essay? I absolutely can get that.
Thank
It'd be
you.
nice if she could even read it to us.
Oh, I like that idea too. Nothing like making the kid really nervous, but I will definitely ask her if she's up for it. All
I
right.
think Chris, sorry, I think Chris Murphy actually has it up on his website. So you can read it online. I'll find the link.
Thanks, Cody. Appreciate it. All right, so then we just move on to the usual business that the board received in their packet. I'll just go through and ask if there's any questions. Let's see, the letter C there would be the Wyndham High School Program of Study. Everyone got a copy of it. I don't know if there's any questions that need to be addressed. Or if we can just. No, okay.
I encourage people, if they do have questions after they if they haven't had a chance to really read through, to reach out to Dr. Youngberg, and I'm sure she can follow up with you. I'm offering her services.
It's all good. The best way to do it. Next up is the budget preparation update. Just to let you know that I did meet with the Finance and Audit, or I should say my team and I met with the Finance and Audit Committee on Monday evening and shared our preliminary thoughts about the 22-23 budget. I have to again thank Rita Parsiak and then Neil Weathers and Stephanie Garrett for all the work that they do behind the scenes in helping develop our budget, as well as the entire leadership team, because it really is an effort across the entire district trying to figure out what we need for a year that is really far away from us at this point. We're really projecting out, but the Finance and Audit Committee gave some feedback, you know, sort of their thinking around what I was proposing, and I think I have a plan moving forward. And on Friday, the 11th, the board will receive a digital version of the 22-23, the superintendent's recommended budget. And we'll talk a little bit more about the budget in the discussion items, because I do have some just overview points to share with folks who might be new to the process. So more to come on that. Any questions so far? No? Okay. Next up is the Barrows and Compañeros lotteries. Are there any questions about that? We're cruising tonight. Not so bad, Miss Ide, see? Next up is the summary of our February 28th Professional Development Day. That is a day that is just for certified staff members. There is no school that day. Any questions about that? And I can tell you behind the scenes that we have a fairly decent sized team working really hard to make the next two professional development days really beneficial to our staff. So I have to just sort of shout out to them. We'll be putting out the brochure that comes with the February 23rd day any day now. I think actually Neil said it might be done. It may be done now, but we have to really formally release it. Can you? I don't think he can unmute right now. I see him.
I can't, sorry, it took me a second. Yeah, we're hoping to send out to staff by Friday afternoon. The group of directors and all the staff that's been working on it is going to be Friday morning to finalize.
Excellent, perfect. Next up is just a little reminder about the whole initiative of project-based learning and the fact that we are training teachers through PBL Works. Project-based learning works has done a number of workshops for us. We haven't been able to get as many people to the workshops as we'd like, because we have had issues with staff being absent as a result of COVID, but we're hoping the spring is going to change that a little bit. So any questions on project-based learning? Summer school, I am proud to say that we have moved the deadlines on summer school, and we actually already have our summer school, or 3 of our 5 summer school coordinators already hired, and a plan to get all of our teachers hired. We're offering a more competitive salary. We've extended the hours of summer school. We're really looking at summer school as an extension of the school year. and hopefully a way to get back some of that instructional time. And again, it's going to have a sort of a fun focus, but absolutely focused on standards at each grade level. We're trying to get kids re-engaged so that we can move them along and make sure that they're mastering the standards we know they need. Any questions on summer school? Mark?
Mark, go
just-
ahead.
Sure. Are we taking outside students?
We have
Right,
not.
current stu-
No,
not-
our current plan is to do what we did last year. We'll take all Wyndham students, which includes students from Barrows.
So even for the high school, we're not taking any outside students, just be ours.
Just, yeah, they have to be Wyndham High School or Wyndham students.
What you're thinking with that, Mark?
I know in the years past, we've had, it's been it's not a major fund for us, but at the high school level, it exposes kids to the high school so that we were able to generate some income and fill the classes. But I don't know if that's, I know we didn't do it last year. I was just curious if we're gonna do it again this year.
Okay, thanks for the feedback.
I have a quick question. Is there a cap on the number of students that we can accept, given the number of teachers that we have? And
Well, I think if we were able to find the teachers, we could move, we'll move the student numbers to meet the teacher numbers, but I think that's what happened to us last year.
We're currently aiming to have this similar teacher structure we did last year, and hopefully to support the same amount of students last year as last year. If we needed to adjust and could find more teachers, we definitely would increase.
did we have to turn away students?
No, no one was turned away last year. Some students registered and didn't come, but that was okay. All right, we didn't turn anybody away.
Thanks.
Next on my list is the mass posting of the positions through HR. Are there any questions about that? Okay, and last but not least is Mr. Hilversum, Eric, the principal of Wyndham Tech. He is completing a practicum with me for his 093 certification, his superintendent certificate through Sacred Heart University. So I just wanted to introduce him to the board. I told him it was kind of a strange way to introduce someone virtually, but I was going to do it anyway because he will be working with me between now and December of 2022. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you.
So we'll be seeing him. He'll be attending our board meetings, perhaps some of our committee meetings. I know we're scheduled to walk around some schools next week together, so you'll be seeing him around. Any
Is there
other
anything you want to say, Principal Hilversum?
Well, I just want to say that I'm excited to join your meeting tonight, and I look forward to be part of your planning and efforts in Willimantic. I'm a fan. I've been working with the community for a number of years now. This is my 4th year plus 3 years as assistant principal. In previous years, something like 7 years that I've been in the community, and I love Wyndham and Willimantic specifically. We have a large number of students from your town, and we're eager to support all your efforts and give continuity to all the great work that Dr. Youngberg is doing. When children have the options and we are able to meet their needs and the things that they would like to do for a career, we're all winning, and we're making every child be a winner. So I look forward to collaborating with Dr. Youngberg and her team, and it's a privilege. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. That's all I have, Ms. Ide.
Okay, if there are no questions, we're going to move along, and we have some reports, committee reports. We'll start off with Katina and the policy committee.
Good evening, everybody. So the policy committee had its first meeting where we crafted the purpose and the goals of the committee that we will have and be of recommendation. We also received the written recommendations of our attorneys, which are looking at our policies and which ones are absolutely necessary, which ones are outdated, etc. So as a policy committee, we are going to have a recommendation for the Board of Education coming up on our next regular board meeting for your consideration and approval. Anything else, Dr. Yonberg, I should add?
No, it's actually one of the discussion topics. So I think that when we get to that slide, I'll cover anything else, but I think you did a really good job of summarizing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else from that committee who has anything they'd like to add to what Katina reported? Okay, it's a hefty amount of work to revamp the policies, and I think we're finally, to the point where we'll be able to make some real progress on it. Thank you. Curriculum committee, I'm going to hand it over to Mary.
Yes, good evening. We had a meeting on February 2nd, our second meeting, and we discussed our draft statement of purpose. There were some questions about, because it was a draft, and comments and feedback. So one issue was an item that talked about revamping or revisiting curriculum in view of student population trends. So that may need to be reworded, and any of those edits I will send to the committee before our next meeting, which is March 2nd, so that we hope to approve of at least the statement of purpose, and then move on to the timeline. So we had a list of topics to prioritize, and one of them was looking at the Windham High School science curriculum, because we have received in the last year as Commissioners Network School, I believe, feedback. And so this is a kind of very relevant opportunity for us to look at the science curriculum and how it needs to move forward to meet the next generation science standards, or I think that's how it's put. We also decided to eliminate all acronyms in our notes and minutes and agendas, which can be a little quite challenging, because in education there are lots of acronyms.
I was going to say, you're going to shut down the system. That's all we use.
Yes, and I welcome any comments from other members of the committee if they would like to add to this brief report. Oh, also Ilda Ray is going to be part of our committee, which all board members can certainly attend the meetings, but now we officially have a new board member joining us.
Yeah, and on that note, I just want to say, the board members all gave me their requests for membership on committees. But if any of you ever change your minds and want to be added to another committee or change committees, you just need to make that request to me, and we can talk about it and make any changes. But we're happy to have Ilda step up to be on another committee. Is there anybody else from policy committee curriculum committee who wants to add anything as Mary invited? Okay, it's a new committee, so it's exciting to be getting this report. We haven't had a curriculum committee since I've been on the board, and I know there have been curriculum committees before, and it's exciting. School planning and design. Brendan isn't with us this evening because of a work commitment that came up at the last minute. Is there anybody from that committee who would like to report anything?
Lynn, I went to the meeting, but I don't feel comfortable, so.
I'll pinch hit.
Yeah, and if you need help, I can help.
Yeah, I'm on the committee. I didn't think of being prepared with notes, but we did spend a fair amount of time talking about the master matrix chart that we're pulling together of all the school capital projects, and how to make sure that the information on that matrix reflects urgency, what kind of why that project is needed, where the funding would come from, timing, things of that sort. And then we've shared it with the Finance and Audit Committee also. And we're going to be bringing that to the board when we get it in good shape and reviewing it with the board a couple of times a year, I think, so that the board can be on top of the capital projects that are on our plate, that all need to go, almost all of them need to go through the town because these are town facilities. So it'll help us be better advocates, I think. The committee thinks better advocates for our projects that need to get done and trying to keep the town from delaying on doing regular upkeep and maintenance. So that's pretty daunting, but I think that's a good thing for the committee to be working on. And we also talked about the solar project at North Windham School and a potential solar project at Barrows. Did I miss anything?
No, I think that
Dr.
pretty much,
Younger?
no, that was pretty much the agenda.
Yeah. And any questions? And I realized when we put this agenda together last week that we didn't account for the fact that the Finance and Audit Committee met on Monday night. So it would be appropriate, Mark, if you'd like to give a report on the Finance and Audit Committee.
I believe that's going to be 7A. And so rather than
Okay.
duplicate it, because most of what we did was, as Tracy, Dr. Younger pointed out, we got the administration's view of how they're going to proceed with the budget, but most of that's going to come out of her report. So rather than duplicate it, I'll wait for 7A.
Oh, I'm actually not reporting out on the specifics of the budget
Right.
tonight, just the basic structure behind the budget.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it's more like, 7A is more like a primer on the budget. So
Well,
that when we have our budget workshop on the 23rd.
What was presented to, the major part of what was presented to us was the basis for how the budget was formatted. We looked at last year's budget line item. We looked at what the budget would look like if every principal got their wish and got what they wanted for the buildings. We looked at the budget as if we did not fill positions that we can fill because we don't have staff members for them. And we looked at the budget if we used rollover money from the past year, which would potentially look at a 0% increase for this year. And the committee felt that that was the better of the proposals to look at, was the use of the rollover monies so that we wouldn't have an actual increase for this year, even though it would represent about a $2 million increase because it's about $2 million worth of rollover monies. The other thing we talked briefly about, as you pointed out, was the capital improvement and the fact that Brendan's committee was working on it. And we looked at just a page. We really didn't look at the whole thing. We just talked in general about that. So I'll enclose on my exciting minutes that I passed in today.
Thanks. Any questions for Mark or additions? Okay, so the committees are moving along. Thank you. So we have two
Lynn?
discussion. Yep, Paula, go ahead.
Can I just mention that Personnel
Yes.
Committee unfortunately couldn't meet last month, but we do intend to meet on Monday. So Stephanie, I hope between you and I and Tracy, we can develop the agenda for that meeting on Monday.
Sounds good.
This coming Monday?
Yes, the 14th.
Okay, thanks. You're gonna spend your Valentine's Day together. So we're on to discussion topics. This first part of the discussion is aimed at getting us all up to speed on how we're gonna, what the budget is made up of, so that when we have our workshop on the 23rd, we'll be better acclimated and prepared.
All right. I just try to think about if speaking to people that didn't have a lot of experience doing this. And of course, some of our board members have many, many years of experience. So you'll just have to bear with me. I'm going to back up a little bit. And this is like Board of Ed Budgets 101. So the first thing I want everyone to know is that it's definitely a collaborative effort. The superintendent, the district leadership team, we work together to create the superintendent's recommended budget. We also make sure that Finance and Audit has a glimpse into our thinking, and that our school governance councils get to see it before it even gets presented to the board. We presented to the board in 2 different budget workshops, and during those workshops, the board is allowed to ask questions, to request additional information, to have us consider a different way of looking at things. They're basically, our sounding board, and because what's going to happen is the superintendent's recommended budget, once the board approves, becomes the Board of Education's recommended budget. And what I present to the town's Board of Finance is not my own budget. It's what the board has decided is the recommended budget for the upcoming school year. So it's sort of an interesting process we're going to go through over the next couple of weeks. And on Friday, you will get the superintendent's recommended budget, at least digitally, and then you'll have some time to go through the budget book before our first workshop, which is February 23rd. Yes, that sounds about right. In February of 2020, so the first budget season that I, as the acting superintendent at the time, was a part of, we made a big jump and created a new and very much improved budget book. Our goal was to have the community better understand what the school system needs in terms of expenditures, where our money comes from, who we are, who our students are, and what it is that we need to really run the school system. So this is actually what you're going to get on Friday, board members, and what the community will see soon is the 3rd version of this new and improved budget book. All I did was take some screenshots, but using last year's budget book, there's some things I want board members to be looking for when they get their digital packet on Friday. The first is the page that we call who we are versus Connecticut. We just created a little graphic. You can see it there on the screen to show how Wyndham is in many ways very different than Connecticut. And I just want the community to understand that, because those differences are amazing. We celebrate our diversity and our strengths, but sometimes those differences do require us to spend money that other districts might not be spending. So I want people to understand that, we have to make sure our kids get what they need. You'll also see in the budget book our targets, district targets, our accomplishments. It's been an unusual last couple of years in terms of state assessments because of COVID. So you'll see lots of asterisks saying, there wasn't testing, or the state didn't release this, or this isn't being reported. There's a lot of that's there, but we're basically trying to show the community as much about the school system as possible and to be as transparent in the process as possible. Again, I say to my leadership team all the time, we're looking for student-centered, collaborative, transparent, and most especially sustainable budgeting. We can't have budgets that are like this. It's not good for kids. It's not good for staff members. We need slow and steady. Sorry, I'm in trouble advancing my slide. A really important piece of the budget is the fact that you're going to hear us talk about, or we're going to talk about lots of pieces of the budget, but what we're really trying to decide on is just the general budget. And the general budget is made up of what they call ECS funds, educational cost sharing funds, and the taxpayer portion of our budget. So the general budget is those 2 things. Our district happens to have an enormous amount of revenue that's outside of those 2 things, but we're only building the general budget. We are going to show you, you can see the screenshot there on the right. We're going to show you on the revenue page all of the places that we receive money. Local money, state money, federal money. It's going to all be completely spelled out for you, so you can see exactly what's coming in and exactly what's going out. On the left-hand side of the screen here, the funding sources, you can see the pie chart. You can see the general fund taxpayer portion. You can see the educational cost share, and you can see any supplemental or grant funding we receive. Again, the general budget that we're building with the Board of Ed is just the yellow and orange section of that pie. And please jump in if you have any questions. Going through the budget book page by page, a fair number of the big chunk of the budget book is actually our school-based pages. And in last year's book, it was pages 24 to 62. So it's a fair amount of the book itself. It basically goes through and it breaks down a whole lot of specific information about each of our schools, because obviously that's what we're trying to do, is to make sure our schools get everything they need to reach their goals. You'll see class size reports in the budget book. And then you're going to want to take a look at probably the most important page to sort of sum things up for you is the executive summary. We refer to it as big buckets. You're going to hear us talk about it as the big buckets. Last year we had 14 big buckets. This year, board members, you'll see we've collapsed a bucket and made 13 and explained that. We make sure that's crystal clear. But the big buckets are really our giant cost drivers, how we get to this big number, $49 million number. And so that'll all be spelled out for you in the next budget book. And then next to, or the pages that follow our big buckets chart is a little information about each of the big buckets to tell you how we ended up with the number. Did the number go up? If it did, why? Did it go down? Why? So we're trying to give as much information behind the executive summary cost drivers as possible. And then the last section of the budget book is actually a replica of our line items. You can actually see where all the money is coming from, how it's spent in each of the big buckets, each of the categories. You'll see a staffing summary that lists our full-time employees, even our part-time employees. It sort of has everyone in there. So you'll get to see that at the back of the book. The other thing that board members need to understand is the whole idea of a minimum budget requirement, or you'll hear them talk about it as the MBR, again, another acronym. That's really all, that's the only thing we use to talk in education. It's all acronyms. Essentially, what you need to know is that the town is not allowed to give us less money than they gave us the year before, unless there's these specific exceptions that can be met, and they're very difficult to meet. But so last year's MBR was $49,085,741. So that's our starting point. So when we talk about asking for a 0% increase, we mean that we're not looking to increase that amount, that 49,085,741. If we were to say we were going to ask the town for a 3%, it would be 3% higher than last year's MBR. So the MBR is always our starting point. I'm sorry.
Tracy, I have, this might not be the place for it, but what are those specific exceptions? Said except with the, that there was some exceptions to the MBR.
Sure. So I can send you the statute. It's laid out. You have to have permission from the Commissioner of Education. It is possible that you've had such a drastic student enrollment decline that you no longer need as much money, but it's a pretty drastic number. I can send you the statute. It's essentially they're saying that you don't need as much money to run the district effectively. I'll send you the statute though, so you can see how it's written out. If the town does, the way the statute's written, if the town were to try to give the school system less than the MBR, they actually can be fined double the difference of what they give the town. So there's really an incentive for it never to happen. We're going to get the MBR, but I will definitely send that to you so you can see it.
Thanks.
I just want to add that it's sort of a moot point because districts with high poverty rates and high needs cannot, it doesn't matter what the population change is. So I don't know why that would even be mooted here as a point, but.
Okay, so for the board members, it's important for you to know that we share insurance funds with the town. So the town and the Board of Ed have the same insurance, which sometimes makes it a little tricky to navigate some pieces of our budget planning. I can tell you that we've worked really hard over the last couple of years, the Board of Education, as well as the Board of Finance, to really work collaboratively in support of the students. I can also tell you that has not always been the case. There has been some friction in the past between those two governing bodies. So I'm happy to say it's not the case anymore. They come to our meetings, we go to theirs, and we're really working together in support of kiddos.
In fact, Dr. Youngberg, that reminds me, we should make sure we let the Board of Finance, the chair of the Board of Finance, know when the budget workshops are. I know we've shared the calendar, but we should probably extend an invitation. to him so that he can invite any Board of Finance members who want to sit in and listen.
Sure.
Do that. Thanks.
Another really important point you need to know is the Board of Finance is not allowed to reduce any of our particular line items. They can't tell us how to spend the money, but they can tell us they don't think we need as much money as long as it's above the MBR. So if we were to ask for a 3%, they could say, no, we're just going to give you a 1%. They can't tell us how to make that adjustment, but that is something that has happened here in the district. Once the Board of Finance agrees on the total amount that the Board of Education's budget will be, that's when it goes out to the taxpayers for their referendum vote. And it's important for the board members to know that Windham Public Schools is the largest employer in the region. We have more than 760 employees. And last time we did a check-in on where our employees lived, about 45% of them are actually town residents. So we are really supporting a big chunk of the community. So just important for everyone to understand that. Any other questions?
I have a question on that last point.
Yep.
We couldn't be a larger employer than Yukon or Eastern.
Well, I guess maybe I should say in the town and not in the region. We actually have
Okay.
more employees than Eastern.
Okay. So
That's for
just-
sure. I don't know
just-
about
just
Yukon.
say the
and-
ta- Yeah, we don't have more employees than Yukon, I think.
You might be right about that, but I know we have more employees than Eastern because we actually fact check that.
Okay, okay.
But
I
I'll
just
check on
don't,
UConn.
I just, when the budget book goes out and we present this at the town level and everything, I don't want people to say
Got it.
that we're wrong about that. That's all. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we do have.
No,
more.
you're probably not wrong. And it should probably say the town of Windham. It's the largest, in the town. We even went as far as to find out, we called Windham Hospital thinking that they might have more employees than us, but they weren't even close. So we actually are a fairly large employer. All right, any other questions on the budget before we go on to just a brief overview of the policy revisions?
Anybody have any questions? Comments? I think this is a helpful reminder for us all who've been through it, but also a good primer for people who are approaching the budget for the first time. And I just also want to give kudos to Dr. Youngberg and her amazing staff team that have actually made a budget book that people can understand, which wasn't really the case for a long time.
Thank you. All right, should I just jump right into the policy revision? Katina gave us a nice overview. We currently, the Windham Public Schools currently has its Board of Ed policies in the CABE format. CABE stands for Connecticut, there's another acronym, Connecticut Association of Boards of Education. We have a substantial number of policies that have not been updated in years, sort of something that I inherited. The Board of Ed's policy committee has been working like crazy to try to not have that be the case. They are regularly putting forth policies, recommended revisions to the full board, but the process has been quite time consuming. It takes a really long time to do the revisions, to get them to the Board of Ed, and then to go through the first and second reading and the vote. So given the sheer number of policies that need to be updated, we actually asked for help from our attorneys so that we could get back on track. And the reason why this is so important is it is actually one of the things spelled out. Policy, keeping up on our board policies is actually a board responsibility. We absolutely positively need to be on top of it. If you go through our current board manual now, you will see a number of policies, much like the one that's on the screen, have not been updated since 2005, 2007, 2009, entirely too long. So we contracted with Shipman and Goodwin, our attorneys, and we asked them to do an audit for two reasons. Number one, we knew that they had what they call model policies. We knew that there are attorneys, and whenever there's a question about our policies, they're the ones we contact to get information and advice from. And they also charge a lot less than CABE does to monitor the policies. So we thought this is a win-win. So last summer they did an audit of our board book. And this is going to allow us to really expedite the revision process and get us back on track so that our policies are at least updated in this decade. That's our goal. On February 3rd, we received an attorney communication that sort of clarified the process, how we should go about doing this. So as Katina said at the next board meeting, the only thing is I have to work out, Katina, is we have to identify exactly which policy. So this may take us a little more time, but then once we get through that next hoop, we can bring to the board a series of policies at each time. The attorney even gave us the language for the vote, the motion, and we can go through and start repealing and adopting, and at the same time maintaining all of our old policies. They'll be archived, so they won't go away. So there's not going to be any confusion should something come up. So they've laid out a whole process for us. So I'm really excited about this because I think we're going to get us back where we should have been many, many years ago. And then it will just be a question of monitoring updates from there. Any questions?
I would like to add, Dr. Youngberg, that the most important issue, at least for me as a board member, since this is the one of our major responsibilities besides supervising the superintendent, is that they will be updated with compliance with the laws of Connecticut and federal law. Because we know that there are some policies that are outdated in such a way that the law doesn't exist anymore. So the fact that we have that guaranteed and that the attorneys are going to be the people who maintain this at a lower cost is of paramount importance to the board. So I'm really thankful that they did that. And and we can actually do it in like chunks, so that we can be up to date instead of 15 years behind.
I agree. It removes a whole bunch of liability and possible headaches. Completely agree. Any other questions?
I'd just like to say that the timing of when we do this, you know, given the fact that the next meeting is a budget workshop, and then we have another workshop on March 2nd, I believe it is. We may need to like really start chipping away at this after we get through the budget workshops. But just so, Katina, just so you aren't disappointed, I don't know how much business we can do at the February 23rd meeting.
Well, I think that actually is reasonable given all that my team is doing on this end for the budget and the preparation for all those workshops. So I think that makes sense. We also, as the attorney pointed out in the communication, we have to make sure that every single policy that we're bringing to the board is available to the board members. So if we do big sections at a time, we might need to create a Dropbox and then make sure everyone can access them digitally. So there's going to be a lot of work behind the scenes before this can happen. So I think it makes sense to wait and get through the budget, the craziness of the next few weeks. Thank you for that. Anything else or?
Any questions, board members? No, get ready to do some reading.
Yeah.
Well, there was one question. Remember, Dr. Youngberg, we were going to ask how many can we present at once?
She didn't give us a number, but she explained all that has to happen in order for you to present any of them. So we'll have to figure out what's reasonable.
Yeah.
You know, everyone has a lot going on. So we want to make sure it's done thoroughly and that the process is, so. All right, the last discussion item is the Board of Ed shared reading. And the first thing I want to do is start off with some celebrations. I know that the fact that we're reading a book together, may or may not seem like something you celebrate, but it's really actually a really good thing. I just was sort of reflecting on the whole process. So first of all, this board did an amazing job working collaboratively with me through all of COVID. I know we're not out of COVID yet. There's still much more to come, but we did a really good job over the last couple of years pulling things together. And right now we have a Board of Ed that is willing to do a shared reading together that did a reflective process in the summer. It actually took a self-assessment and said what we did well and what we needed to improve upon. They produced a formal superintendent's evaluation. We've created new committees that are interconnected. Those committees now have purpose statements and goals, right? Everyone's involved in many cases, multiple committees, and we're working together for the purpose of the students and the staff in the district. So it might not seem like, you know, this is a big deal that we're doing a shared reading, but I feel like we've sort of changed who our board is, and it's exciting. So I just wanted to point that out, that I think we're on a good path and I want to continue on it. And I know reading outside of your normal lives and your jobs, and I've already said this many times, the Board of Ed is an enormous amount of time. The volunteer hours that you put in is, I don't know how people do it. I really don't. So I understand that. So if you don't, you know, if the timeframes that I set up to say that we're going to read a chapter don't seem like enough time, please say, I think I'm going to need more time. I will not at all be offended. I completely understand. I did a doctoral program. I work in full time. I completely understand how hard it is to juggle. So feel free. So what I want to say after just sort of shouting out and celebrating everyone is that we set up a Google Doc. There were minimal issues, but there were some. We set up a Google Doc and we asked folks to reply to 3 questions at the end of chapter 3 from our book. It appears that everyone did a great job of interpreting chapter 3 and putting down the information. There might have been some miscommunication around whether we should be able to see each other's responses or not. I think what I was trying to say was that I was going to give a general report without bringing anyone's names into it. And that's how I think we should move forward. I don't think that this should be threatening in any way. So I think everyone did a great job on our first assignment. What I'm thinking about for the next, and these are just suggested next steps. If you don't agree, I'm open to having a conversation about it. But we have some big things coming up. We have potentially a vote on a mask mandate, right? And that whole piece that could involve the board. And we certainly have the voting on the board budget and then going through the whole budget process with the town Board of Finance. So I thought it might make sense for us to read together chapters 4 and 5 next, because it's about sort of being a unified voice and communicating effectively and then making decisions as a team. So I thought it might make sense, given what we have on our agenda coming up, for us to do that, but I'm open to suggestions. I just wanted to say I am impressed for those of you who did the homework. I think you did a good job.
Can people give me a thumbs up or some sign if they think doing these next 2 chapters makes sense?
Yeah.
And again, if it's too much reading or not enough time, we can stretch it out.
And
We get some thumbs up. I need to see from everybody. Okay, pretty much Alicia and Mark. I know Mark doesn't like getting homework. Mark said thumbs up.
I have my dog standing by to eat some more of the book, so that'd be not a problem.
He literally sent me a picture of the dog eating the book. I just wanted to tell you that.
And I called and I said, I didn't know how to add my name to Google's Doc, and I don't want the principal to be mad at me for
Yeah,
not doing homework.
She's not lying. She did call to say that.
So we're going to go ahead and do this then. Read the next chapters by the 2nd of March.
And the homework is that we're going to be taking part in all the things that we do together as the Board of Ed and Superintendent. So that is the homework. There's no extra, just the reading itself.
Okay.
Okay.
It's easy.
I'm going to add that we are also looking towards the policy book change. So that's another team decision-making process that
You're absolutely correct. Thank you for pointing that out. So another reason why we should, read up on what it means to make decisions as a team.
And deciding how we're going to move forward, if we're going to move forward, what it's going to look like around the elementary school consolidation.
We have a lot of big things on the horizon. You're absolutely right.
So get ready for March.
I will send you these slides so that board members can check back if they have any questions.
Okay. So we're going to move on. Thank you, Dr. Youngberg. That was very helpful. And thanks to everybody for doing the reading and the homework and the willingness of this board to be in active learning mode together. That's a good thing. So we have one action item on the agenda this evening. It's acceptance of a grant for the Lockin for Literacy event from the Jeffrey P. Austin Family Foundation. And I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Katina, second by Cody. Okay, is there any discussion on the motion that's on the floor? Cody, go ahead.
Real quick, I just thought of this question, but maybe Tracy or Lynn could answer. We have already received one of these grants, correct? Is this an additional $5,000 grant on top of the other one from the same foundation, or was that just we approved to submit the grant proposal?
I think this is letting you know that we actually received the check for $5,000.
Okay, all right.
Submitted the grant proposal, and
right.
so we have to accept the grant.
Okay. I did speak with Dr. Youngberg and Lynn via email about this already. And I had looked into the program prior to our vote last time and was conflicted, particularly about the Lockin for Literacy event, mostly because from what I could gather, the authors that were chosen that were platformed for those events and that are, therefore subsequently sort of financed or bankrolled to come and visit. And the subjects that were chosen were all at least leaned in a ideologically progressive direction. And, I get that this is an optional event, but it's a fun cultural event. I would really have liked to approve or vote in favor of receiving it, but to know that the money is going to be going to finance some authors who I believe are going to be are writing books that our kids will read that I think will ultimately have a net negative for them is just something I can't support. So I'll be voting no tonight.
Thank you, Cody, for explaining your vote. I think it's important for people to understand. Katina.
Yes, I would like to say that I have participated and be the lock-in for literature several times as my adopted daughter was part of Windham High School until last year. And that I have the utmost respect, not only for the teachers and all the volunteers, but also to the authors and the subject matters that are addressed. For example, I would like to have a conversation one day, Cody, with you to understand your definition of progressive, because if the last look for literature was "we are all one," and that was the message, that we are all one and we are diverse and we accept people for who they are and where they are, that would be a humane and human theme that applies to everyone. So I am very proud to support this funding. The Austin Foundation is nothing but good to this community. And thank you to all the volunteers. And we continue teaching our students critical thinking and deciding upon themselves what is right or not for them. And having the last thing was absolutely, I still can remember the passion about we are all Windham, we are all one in acceptance and validation of our differences. If that is progressive, then let it be. It's a good thing for human beings.
Thank you, Katina. Is there anybody else who would like to comment? Okay, if hearing and seeing none, I'm going to ask Holly to do a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Ide,
Aye.
Dr. Galucci,
Aye.
Ms. Ray,
I definitely.
Dr. Kaban Owen,
Aye.
Mr. Doyle,
Aye.
Ms. Haney,
She said aye, even though she's on mute.
thank you.
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Rivera
Aye.
and Mr. Barr.
Nay.
Thank you very much, folks. That was the last item on the agenda for tonight, and we'll open it up to public comment. If anybody has public comment related to items on the agenda, please raise your hand and or type it into the chat. Type into the chat.
Lynn, I just have a comment. It's not related to agenda item, but just to sort of clarifying for the board. And that is if there's any board members interested in signing the beam for the Wyndham High School Renovate as New project, you can come to the cafeteria tomorrow or Friday. The beam is going to be put somewhere in the high school, but we want everybody's signature on it. So if you're interested in that, tomorrow or Friday in the cafeteria.
Thanks.
Yep.
I don't see any hands up. Let me go to page 2, make sure I'm not missing anybody. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:01.
But
So-
since Brendan's not here,
So
yeah,
moved.
that's what I was gonna say, since Brendan's not here. We move.
Okay,
everybody.
meeting adjourned at 8:01. Thank you, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Have a good night.
Night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.